Jalen hurled the iron lid with all his strength. The metallic clang echoed through the alley, cutting through the silence of the night and making the masked man stop and turn, alert. The intruder hesitated for a second, and that was enough. The sensor slipped from his hand, fell into a puddle, and hissed. A red flash blinked on the steel door. The alarm had been triggered. Jalen ran before he could be seen. His heart pounded so hard it seemed to rupture his eardrums. At 13, after months living on the streets of Brooklyn, he knew he couldn't trust anyone. But that night, for some reason he couldn't quite explain, he couldn't just watch. Something pulled him into the risk. Something made him throw that lid and stop what he knew wasn't just a regular theft. The intruder fled in the opposite direction. Jalen darted across the drenched street like a shadow. He didn't look back. He passed dumpsters, slipped on the asphalt, almost fell, but kept going. The sound of sirens began to rise in the distance, and he disappeared. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the time, so you don't miss any of our emotional stories. A masked man crouched behind the maintenance door at the back of the tower, held an unknown device. He seemed to know what he was doing, until suddenly, the metallic noise. The man paused, alert. Internal cameras captured the alarm being triggered seconds later. Rewind that part, now, ordered Lucas Hartman, the company's CEO, eyes fixed on the monitor. Randall Knox, head of security, adjusted the footage. The lens captured a silhouette across the street. Small, thin, face partially hidden by a torn hood. Looks like a kid, Randall muttered. A kid triggered the alarm before the invasion? Hartman frowned. I want that boy here. Today. Brooklyn. 1 p.m. Jalen was huddled near the abandoned tracks, waiting for the pigeons to move away from a cardboard bag with the remnants of a sandwich. He was hungry. Cold. But his mind was restless. He knew what he had done wasn't small. The masked man was carrying something strange, and he'd seen him trying to connect it to the door's wiring. Jalen knew those wires. He had slept beside them dozens of times. He knew where they led. Two men in suits appeared like shadows behind him. One held a clipboard, the other had a radio on his belt. Jalen Brooks? Asked the first, though it was obvious the boy had no documents to show. Jalen stood quickly. I didn't do anything. We know, but Mr. Hartman wants to speak with you. The tone was too firm to be a mere invitation. The room was cold, white, full of glass and silence. Jalen sat on the edge of the chair, still with the torn backpack on his shoulders. Lucas Hartman entered without looking directly at him. He placed a tablet on the table and hit play on the video. Is this you here? Jalen looked, nodded. What were you doing in that alley? Sleeping. But I saw the guy. He was messing with the wires. Was about to connect a device that looked like an injector. Hartman leaned back in his chair. And how do you know what an injector is? Jalen opened his backpack. From inside, he pulled out a battered notebook. The pages were stained with oil, but the drawings were precise. Circuit diagrams, technical descriptions, flowcharts. He pointed to a page. This part here, it's where the building connects the fire network with the auxiliary server. If he took it down, you'd be exposed for more than 2 minutes before the contingency kicked in. Hartman took the notebook. Read it in silence for long seconds. Where did you get this? I made it myself. I picked up old manuals and books from street markets. And when I found broken routers, I took them apart. I learned on my own. The CEO slammed the notebook shut. You think this gives you any right? This isn't a playground. I don't want any rights. Just thought you'd want to know. Get him out of here. Randall stepped forward to grab Jalen by the arm, but the boy said something that made him stop. The attack is still coming. Yesterday was just the first try. What if he's already inside the company? The room froze. Hartman hesitated but didn't give in. He called the social services department. Jalen was placed in a temporary shelter, but the notebook, that stayed at the company. A few hours later, Miriam Adler, head of digital security, stormed into Lucas's office. You need to see this. I've seen it, the kid's got too much imagination. It's not imagination. He mapped a real flaw, one our team took 6 months to even suspect, and he did it alone. On the streets, no internet, no simulations. He's real. Hartman remained silent for a few seconds. It was clear he didn't know what to do with that information. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Jalen stared out the gray window. Outside, more rain, more cars, more people who passed by as if he didn't exist. And then, on the company's security screen, the first signs appeared. Unusual data packets coming from masked IPs. The activity was coordinated, precise, and indicated a new attack, one that was already underway. But when they went looking for Jalen, he was no longer there. Gone, as if he had never existed. And Hartman Technologies was now facing the biggest attack in its history, with a single boy who knew how to stop it, and whom no one could find. Lucas Hartman's coffee sat cold on the table, untouched. The gray morning spilled through the glass wall of the 38th floor at Hartman Technologies Tower in Lower Manhattan. But he didn't blink. The replay of the security footage looped on the screen in front of him. The sound was off, but he had memorized every second. The boy's shadow, the lid being thrown, the quick escape, the alarm going off. Jalen Brooks, the head of security, murmured. 12 or 13 years old, no recent school records, passed through shelters in Brooklyn and the Bronx. No listed family, likely living on the streets. And what was he doing at our door? Lucas didn't take his eyes off the screen. He stopped the attack, it seems. Or he was part of it. A deliberate distraction, a setup to seem innocent. Create chaos, divert attention, vanish. Classic move. Randall tilted his head. He threw the object toward the fence, not the company. In the opposite direction. The intruder ran, looks legit. Lucas raised an eyebrow. And you want me to give a medal to some street kid? Randall, you know how this works. You don't build an empire by trusting every beggar with a good story. The security radio crackled. The boy had been located. Near the Staten Island ferry terminal, sheltering under an awning, his backpack beside him, and a torn sock hanging on the railing to dry. Randall left immediately with 2 agents. Jalen was found sleeping, hugging an old coat, his soaked notebook strapped to his chest with an elastic band. He tried to run, but the agent held him. He didn't resist violently. He just looked up, eyes wide, a mix of fear and resignation. You again, he said quietly. I was just trying to help. He was taken back to the company headquarters without handcuffs, but also without dignity. He passed through the marble lobby where suited professionals stared at him like he was a glitch in the system, an anomaly, an error. In the meeting room, Lucas Hartman didn't hide his disdain. Sitting in his black leather chair, he slowly spun the soaked notebook between his fingers. This yours? Jalen nodded. His forehead was sweaty despite the cold. His coat was still dripping. I drew it all. There's something wrong in your system. That guy yesterday, he was going through the fire alarm circuit. Lucas opened one of the pages. The drawing was shaky but precise. Several codes lined the margins with arrows and notes like bypass loop if delay exceeds 3.2s and pulse sequence must be constant or alert fails. The CEO narrowed his eyes. You know what this means? Of course. I studied. Where? On the street? Jalen didn't answer. You trying to look like a genius? Lucas continued. A boy savior? You want to get adopted? Make the news? The boy hesitated, then murmured, I just wanted someone to listen. The silence that followed was heavy. Lucas slammed the notebook shut. Randall, get him out of here. Jalen stood slowly. I don't want money, or fame, or to stay here. His voice faltered. I just didn't want to see anyone else die because of a broken system. I've seen enough. Lucas turned away. He couldn't handle it. The emotional weight, the implications. Because deep down, he knew the kid was right, and that the system did, indeed, have flaws no one had fixed. But he also knew that acknowledging this meant admitting a homeless boy saw what his best engineers hadn't, and that was unacceptable. Jalen was rushed out of the building. Randall hesitated, but followed orders. On the way, the boy dropped the notebook on purpose. He pretended to stumble, letting it slide from his wet backpack onto the hallway floor. No one noticed. He was taken to a shelter near Coney Island, a damp building where the mattresses reeked of mildew and dinner was watery soup with stale bread. He stayed less than 3 hours. At 10:15 p.m., he escaped through the bathroom window. No note, no address, no trace. The next morning, Miriam Adler arrived early. The chief cybersecurity engineer noticed something on the floor of the surveillance room. The notebook, heavy with water but still legible. She opened it, not knowing what it was. On the first page, a complete diagram of Hartman Technologies' security infrastructure. Updated, precise. It included latency calculations, backup flows, redundancy flaws, and, shockingly, a mathematical forecast of the actual response time of the team during a coordinated attack. She flipped through more pages. There were concepts even some senior staff didn't fully grasp. Reverse engineering techniques, cryptographic projections, keylogger simulations. Startled, Miriam ran into Lucas's office. "This is serious. Whoever drew this has advanced level knowledge. It's from a kid we found yesterday. What's his background?" "Starvation." "That's not possible." Lucas said nothing. He stared out the window. The sky was clear, but inside him, something darkened. At that very moment, the company's security system began detecting suspicious packets deep in the infrastructure. Subtle signs, data fragments probing for weaknesses. It wasn't a full attack yet. It was something more dangerous, a silent probe. On the internal network, a user with a non-existent ID executed unauthorized commands. In under 5 seconds, the logs were erased. The tracking system glitched for exactly 3.2 seconds. The same delay described in the notebook. Lucas turned sharply to Miriam. "You're saying what's in that notebook is happening now?" "I'm saying that boy knew before any of us, and we're in danger." "Where is he?" "Gone." Lucas clenched his fists. "You think he's part of the attack?" "I think he tried to warn us and we treated him like trash." The silence returned, but it wasn't the same silence. It was the muffled sound of guilt. Meanwhile, Jalen walked the streets of Harlem, barefoot, eyes fixed on cafe windows he was never allowed to enter. The only thing he carried was a torn piece of plastic covered in scribbles that looked like code. He checked it now and then, corrected it mentally, improved it. No one saw him, but he saw everything. And on the other side of the city, the systems of Hartman Technologies began to darken. Miriam Adler was used to working with cold reports, lines of code, attack maps, automated logs. After 20 years in cybersecurity, nothing surprised her anymore. She had seen viruses mimicking human traffic, Trojans disguised as Windows processes, even a Russian script hidden inside the HTML of a weather bulletin. But never had a hand-scribbled notebook left her speechless. She had found the object by chance on the monitoring department's counter. It was out of place, lying between an old keyboard and a box of disposable gloves. The paper was damp, warped, and its edges torn, as if it had survived a storm. In a way, it had. On the first page, Miriam found a sketch that appeared to be a floor plan of Hartman Technologies' headquarters. At first, she thought it was a random doodle by a bored intern, but as her eyes scanned the lines, something began to trouble her. "Wait, this isn't just the ground floor," she murmured. The lines detailed not only the physical layout but also the logical architecture of the company's network. Routing points, redundancy cables, panel IDs that matched the official inventory exactly. There were arrows and notes in the margins. Bypass possible here if TTL is below 3.2s. Non-encrypted delay buffer at this node. Latent vulnerability. Possible exploit via logical noise induction. She flipped another page, and there it was. A handwritten simulation of a cyber attack on the company. Numbered steps. The sequence of events detailed with precision, almost like a prophecy. Miriam felt a chill down her spine. She picked up the phone. "Lucas, I need to talk to you now. I'm in a meeting. This can't wait. It's about the boy's notebook." When she entered the CEO's office, Miriam didn't ask for permission. She spread the notebook across the glass table, pinning the pages with pens and a coffee cup. Lucas sighed, visibly annoyed. "This again?" "Just look." He read the first scribbles with disinterest, but slowly his expression changed. He furrowed his brow, leaned back in his chair, kept reading. "This is classified information." "I know, and it's here, drawn by hand, by a street kid." Lucas turned a page and found a shaky line that read, "If external IP persists more than 200 millers, there is a 47% chance of silent reinjection." He calculated reinjection probability based on our own internal stats. This is madness? Coincidence? An external hacker who passed the notebook to him? Could be any of that. But it's not. I reviewed the logs from the night of the failed attack. The flaw he predicted actually existed. Lucas exhaled hard. This doesn't make sense. No sense at all. The intruder knew where to strike, but the boy knew how to stop him. He could still be part of the attack. Then why stop it? Why put this in our hands? Miriam tapped the paper. If it was part of the plan, he would have let it happen. Lucas slowly spun his chair, looking at the ceiling as if searching for a divine explanation that wouldn't come. This changes everything. Not if you ignore it. You know the press will devour this if it leaks. Homeless boy saves billion-dollar company. He scoffed. The shareholders will have our heads. Lucas, there's more. She pulled out a page from the notebook. A map of logical access to the data contingency system. 3 circles marked in red ink. The legend read, "If attack comes through these ports, the system enters catatonic state. Must prevent." She flipped the sheet. On the back, another warning. Future attack already in progress. Entered through Gate B and went undetected. Lucas stood up. "You're saying?" "Yes. Someone's already in," and only he noticed. At that moment, the company system began alerting Miriam with automated notifications. Unusual packets detected. Traffic variations at data ports 411B and 530C. Oh my God. Miriam rushed to her laptop. It's exactly as he wrote. Lucas followed. Within seconds, they saw code being executed from an internal address, but with no registered user. "That's inside the network," Miriam typed furiously. "We're under attack. Can you block it?" No. He masked the source. It's moving like a legitimate process. Lucas looked back at the notebook. The scribbled paper, the childish handwriting, the accurate predictions. Who is this boy? That's the wrong question. The real one is, where is he now? At that moment, across the city, Jalen was in the basement of an abandoned building. The ceiling dripped. Pipes hummed with erratic water flow. He watched the dim glow of his old monitor, wired to a jumble of recycled cables and batteries. The signal was weak, but enough. Code ran across the screen. He smiled, not with joy, but recognition. I told them it would happen, and they didn't listen. Jalen typed a few more lines. The screen blinked. Hartman Technologies systems were there, accessible to him like he was a hidden admin. But he wasn't using it to attack. He just observed. He knew there was an enemy inside the company. And he also knew he was the only one who could stop it. Back at the tower, Miriam looked at Lucas. "You still think this is all coincidence? That this kid just made all this up without ever seeing a proper terminal?" Lucas didn't respond. He picked up the notebook and turned to another page. This time it wasn't a schematic, but faces. His, Miriam's, Randall's, and one final figure, sketched in the lower corner with the caption, "He is already among you." Miriam froze. How did he know? Lucas let the notebook fall onto the table. "We've been looking for the wrong person." "What?" Maybe the boy didn't predict the attack. Maybe he recognized it, because he's seen it before. He's just a boy, Lucas. No one who writes this is just a boy. A heavy silence settled in the room. The city buzzed outside, but inside, only the quiet hum of server fans remained. On the screen, data packets continued to dance, mocking the firewall's inefficiency. Jalen had vanished again. No shelter recorded his entry. No camera had detected him. It was as if he'd evaporated, but he had left something behind, beyond the notebook. A hidden SD card tucked under a glued flap on the back cover. Miriam found it by chance, inserted it into the reader. Short videos, audio clips, notes, theories, lines upon lines of code, attack simulations, voices recorded in noisy places. In one of them, Randall Knox appeared on a call. It's all set. He has no idea. Once it's activated, the system crashes in minutes. Miriam froze the video, rewound, played again. This can't be real. Lucas leaned in. What is it? Randall, No, he's involved. The ground vanished beneath Lucas's feet. The boy knew, the whole time. And they had dismissed him. And now, the enemy was closer than they ever imagined. He warned us, Lucas. Miriam's voice trembled, more with outrage than fear. He predicted everything and we ignored him. You ignored him. Lucas Hartman stared blankly at the frozen image on the monitor. Randall Knox, his personal head of security for over 8 years, speaking on the phone with someone outside the company, his tone conspiratorial. The words from Jalen's SD card recording echoed in Lucas's mind like a painful buzz. He has no idea. Once it's activated, the system crashes in minutes. Lucas swallowed hard, his fists clenched. I trusted him. I promoted that man. And meanwhile, the kid was sleeping on the streets and still saw more than our entire team of analysts. Miriam shot back, each word like a blade. This is no longer about reputation or about Hartman Technologies. It's about not letting the only person who tried to save us die alone and forgotten. Lucas took a moment, then slowly rose to his feet, rubbing his face like he could wipe away his disbelief. Let's find him. Miriam had already activated the internal search systems, but it was pointless. Jalen had no ID number, no fixed address, no recent public service records. He was off the grid, invisible. Then we go to the streets, Lucas said, already grabbing his coat. If he's not in the data, he's in the places. Miriam stared at him for a moment. It was the first time she'd seen the man say something that didn't involve profit, damage, or projections. For the first time, Lucas Hartman seemed human. New York pulsed outside. Sirens, horns, the cold wind carrying the smell of wet concrete. The city spun, indifferent to the crisis unraveling inside Lucas's empire. They started with the obvious, the shelters. Miriam already had the list of the last 3 Jalen had passed through. One in the Bronx, one in East Harlem, another in Coney Island. At the first, a social worker recognized them from the media and tried to hide her disdain. He stayed here 2 nights. Said he had something important to give someone. No one listened. Then he disappeared. Did he leave anything behind? A name? Miriam asked. Just a message on the bulletin board. Wrote it in chalk. Don't ignore the red part. At the second shelter, they found an old blanket and a pile of scribbled pages tossed in the trash. More schematics, more maps. Some partially burned. Someone had tried to destroy them. At the third shelter, there was no trace at all. Lucas was visibly shaken. His white shirt was now stained with sweat despite the cold. His eyes, red. We threw him away, he said, watching a child play with a cardboard box in the corner of the shelter. Like garbage. And still he tried to protect us, Miriam replied, firm. That boy needs saving, for his sake, for ours. They went to the precincts, showed a low-resolution image from the internal system. Some people remembered seeing someone like him near the L train line. An officer from the subway said the boy looked feverish, trembling like a leaf. Probably had an infection or something, refused help. Ran off. As hours passed, anguish grew. With every cold response, every dead end, Lucas felt more than guilt. He felt fear. Because now it wasn't just about saving the company. It was about saving someone he had discarded. By late afternoon, they stopped at a park on the Lower East Side. A homeless man approached, recognizing Miriam. You folks from Hartman, right? Looking for the kid who draws? Lucas stepped forward. You saw him? Yeah, was coughing bad. Collapsed off that bench there, he said, pointing. Ambulance took him. Miriam nearly dropped the tablet in her hands. When was this? This morning. Around 9, I think. Where'd they take him? St. Jude's Hospital, I guess. Closest one. The taxi ride felt endless. The tension inside the car was suffocating. Lucas absent-mindedly twisted his wedding ring. Miriam reread the notes from Jalen's notebook for the 10th time, focusing on one phrase scribbled in blue in the lower corner of the last page. Some codes repeat because they want to be heard. Others scream for help. At the hospital, they headed straight to reception. Miriam flashed an old company badge. We're looking for a boy named Jalen Brooks. He was admitted this morning. The receptionist typed into the system. Yes, he's in the pediatric ward. Isolation room 3B. No guardian. Critical condition. Lucas and Miriam ran down the white corridor to the indicated room. The scene they found stopped time. Jalen lay in the bed, eyes half open. An IV in his arm, pale face, labored breathing. Next to the bed, the same notebook rested on a metal tray like it was evidence. My God, Miriam whispered. Jalen slowly opened his eyes, recognized Miriam, then Lucas. I tried to warn you. His voice was barely a whisper. Lucas stepped closer, pulled a chair, and held the boy's cold hand. I know, and I'm here now. Not for me, not for the company, for you. Jalen tried to smile, but broke into a harsh cough. Miriam adjusted his pillow. You're going to be okay, Jalen. I promise. He closed his eyes again, his breath still weak but steadier. The doctor entered. He came in with an advanced infection due to prolonged exposure. Pneumonia, worsened by malnutrition. He's fighting. Lucas locked eyes with the doctor. Do whatever it takes. Money is not an issue. That night, Lucas didn't go home. He slept in a chair beside the bed. Miriam stayed too. They took turns between the ward and the avalanche of urgent emails from the tech team, panicked over the accelerating cyber attack. And still, right there beside that frail boy, only one thing mattered now, not failing him again. Morning arrived quietly through the wide windows of room 3B at St. Jude's Hospital. The light filtered through the blinds, tracing lines across the white bedsheet, like a code waiting to be deciphered. Jalen slept facing the wall, the IV still connected to his left arm. The heart monitor beeped slowly but steadily. Lucas Hartman had been there since the previous night, without his blazer, without his executive posture. Sleeves rolled up, eyes sunken. He hadn't slept. In front of him lay Jalen's notebook, now dry, opened to a specific page. A circular sketch resembling a circuit with words in the center. The flaws aren't only in the systems. Miriam walked in with 2 coffees and sat beside him. Did you sleep? Lucas shook his head. He reminds me of my son. His voice was low, hoarse. Nicholas would be his age now. 12. He used to have that same look when he was focused on a project. I thought he'd be an architect. Miriam looked at him surprised. She didn't know. No one did. Lucas wasn't one to share wounds. What happened to him? Car accident. I was in a meeting. My wife called, asked me to postpone. I said I couldn't. Said it wasn't the right time. I didn't go. Miriam said nothing. She knew that no words would be enough in that moment. Lucas stood and approached the bed. He looked at Jalen like he saw something beyond flesh or pain, then gently touched the boy's hand. Jalen opened his eyes. You came back, he murmured, his voice stronger than the night before. I came back, Jalen, and I need to tell you something. Jalen just waited. I'm sorry. For doubting you. For not listening. For treating you like a problem when you were the solution. Jalen looked at the ceiling, then slowly turned his face toward Lucas. Is that system still exposed? Yes. Then take me there. What? I improved the code in my head. I wanted to write it in the notebook, but didn't have time. You need to rest. Jalen pulled the blanket to his chest. His eyes were clearer now. I'll rest after I fix it. If I don't do it now, everything I've done so far means nothing. Lucas looked at Miriam, then at the doctor, who checked the vital signs. Technically, he can leave for a few hours with monitoring, the doctor said reluctantly. But he must return the same day. Any sign of instability, and you stop immediately. Lucas nodded. 2 hours later, Jalen walked through the front door of Hartman Technologies headquarters for the first time. Wearing clean clothes borrowed from the hospital, the ID band still on his wrist. As he entered, employees stopped typing. Some exchanged glances. Others smiled, surprised. Everyone remembered the boy from the video. In the operations room of the digital security department, where 20 professionals managed a multi-million-dollar data protection infrastructure, Jalen looked like an intruder. But when he approached the digital board and asked for a tablet, no one stopped him. Lucas stayed silent. Miriam simply watched. Show me the logs from the latest attacks, starting with the night of the 12th. I want to see the packets from the masked Romanian IP. Then the second wave from Ukraine. The analysts hesitated. You have them stored, right? One of the engineers, Brian Costner, raised an eyebrow, impressed. Yeah, we do. How did you know where they came from? Because the injection patterns match Sigma Zero's style, a hacker group that exploits slow ports using noise-based delays. It's their signature. But that wasn't even in our internal briefings yet, Brian said, stunned. Jalen was already navigating the data. His fingers were quick, despite his physical weakness. In minutes, he found a segment no one had properly analyzed. He pointed to a line. This here is the alarm clock. When it reaches 512 kb in 3.2 seconds, it activates log cleaning. Then it performs what I call corporate traffic mimicry. Mimicry of what? Asked a firewall engineer. It copies real company packets and injects them as if they were normal routines. It's like the attack becomes part of the system. Invisible. A tense silence filled the room. One of the veteran engineers stood staring at Lucas. This kid, he's not a regular hacker. He understands this better than anyone. Jalen kept typing. And here's the important part. We can use the attack's own delay against it. If we implant a reverse mirror at the phantom port, the attack will try to flee and crash into itself. Brian's eyes widened. A reverse loop. Exactly. But that's just theoretical. Then let's make it practical. Lucas turned to the engineers. Do what he says. For the next 2 hours, Jalen coordinated one of the most ingenious defenses the company had ever recorded. He explained every step, drew on the board, answered questions patiently, and most remarkably, he did it without arrogance, without ego, just with the calm of someone who simply wanted things to work. At 4:37 p.m., the attack stopped. The packets vanished. Traffic returned to normal. The room erupted in applause. Jalen smiled. Not much, but it was his first genuine smile in a long time. Lucas pulled him aside. You saved all of this. Jalen exhaled, tired. I just wanted to fix what I saw was broken. And now? Now I go back to the hospital. Lucas accompanied him to the car. On the way, he pulled something from his pocket. An ID badge. What's this? Your badge. Honorary analyst at Hartman Technologies. And a scholarship. As far as you want to go. Jalen said nothing. It's not charity. It's respect. In the car, as the city lights passed by outside, Jalen leaned his head against the window, closed his eyes, but didn't sleep. Inside the backpack he now carried was a brand new notebook, blank, ready for the next system to be decoded. The next morning, the Hartman Technologies building felt calmer than it had in days. The Manhattan sky was clear, traffic flowed gently down Fifth Avenue, and inside the steel and glass tower, a rare sense of relief hung in the air. The attack had been neutralized, the system was stable, and all ports showed clean traffic. Jalen had woken early at the hospital, with a strange feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't fear. It was intuition. That silent restlessness he had learned to trust in alleyways, during nights hiding from dangerous adults or other starving kids. He could feel when something was about to go wrong. And now, even lying in a white bed with monitors showing normal vitals, anxiety gnawed at his stomach. He powered on the small laptop Miriam had left for him the night before, connected to a secure company network. He only meant to review some of the overnight logs, just out of habit. But when he spotted an unusual sequence of accesses to a protected directory named ZCore Backup, his eyes widened. The IP was internal. Someone was extracting entire data packets from the confidential file layer, without authorization and without encryption, and they were doing it in small chunks to avoid triggering alarms. It was a subtle, intelligent breach, but it carried a very specific signature Jalen knew well, a spacing pattern between packets using fractional seconds, 1.02s, 2.04s, 1.02s, 3.06. Jalen froze. It was the same rhythmic music from the original attack logs, the Invaders song. But now, it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside Hartman Technologies. Jalen activated a custom protocol he'd created days before, a tracker that followed pulse patterns and used internal echo mapping to identify the source terminal. The answer came seconds later. The machine was on the 39th floor, executive suite. Jalen opened a private channel and called Miriam. Miriam, someone's selling out the system, from the inside, from the top. She froze on the other end. Are you sure? Absolutely. And there's more. They're programming a crash in the primary server. They're installing a redundancy-triggered self-destruct code. When the system tries to protect itself, it'll overload and destroy its core. That's impossible. No executive has direct admin access to ZCore. Jalen hesitated. Unless he built the contingency system himself. Silence. No, Miriam whispered. You're saying the creator of the system is using the flaws he designed. Lucas, listening in from his office, broke in. Who? Jalen's answer was ice cold. Randall Knox. The words sliced through the air like razors. Randall, the man Lucas had long showcased as the embodiment of integrity, his right hand, the head of security, had built the system, installed its protections, and was now using them as exit doors to destroy everything. Lucas went pale. His mind spun. It felt like every decision of the past years was now turning against him. We have to stop him. Now. Jalen typed rapidly. We won't have time to disable it remotely. He built a physical lock loop. Once the self-destruct triggers, we have 4 minutes before total collapse. 4 minutes? Miriam gasped. What do we do? Jalen looked at a corner of his screen, a tab named Urban Squirrel V3. It was a program he'd built during his street days. He called it the Squirrel because it was stealthy, fast, and could climb through even the narrowest system gaps. I have one chance, but I need physical access to the server core. Miriam was already running down the corridor. I'm coming to get you now. The hospital released Jalen under signed responsibility. He wore a gray hoodie with the company logo and a mask as a precaution. He still had a fever, but didn't complain. When Miriam opened the car door, he was already explaining. Urban Squirrel V3 is an algorithm that injects itself into the system kernel. It clones critical processes in real time and creates phantom versions to act as decoys. When the malicious code hits the clones, it triggers a trap that freezes it. Does it work? It does, if the kernel allows parallel execution, and if the power doesn't cut out mid-process. They ran into the server room. The clock read 9:21 a.m., 2 minutes left. Jalen opened the manual terminal, pulled out the retractable keyboard, and launched the installation. Lucas arrived moments later, pale, flanked by reinforced security. Randall still hadn't been found. He'd vanished since early morning. Jalen typed with the precision of a surgeon. Each command tested, validated, executed faster. How much time left? Miriam asked, sweating. 60 seconds. On screen, the server's heat map started flashing red. Collapse was close. Randall's code was already in motion, deleting backups, isolating partitions, triggering cascading crashes. Jalen exhaled. Done. He hit enter. The screen froze, then blacked out. Everyone held their breath. 5 seconds. 10. A hum. The server lights steadied. Fans roared. Heat maps returned to green. On screen, a message blinked. Squirrel installed successfully. Attack contained. The room exploded into cheers. Miriam hugged Jalen tightly. Lucas stumbled back and collapsed onto the floor, drained. He was crying. You saved everything. Jalen just looked at the screen. I only used what I learned when no one wanted to teach me. How did you know how to do this? He shrugged. I used to listen to the subway sounds at night. Every noise had a pattern. Every vibration said something. I learned to read systems by sound, by light, by failure. The whole world screams, if you learn to hear it. Lucas approached, knelt before him. Jalen, you're not an analyst, not an employee. You're the foundation of this now. You're the pillar. And if you let me, I want to see you grow into a free man with everything you deserve. But you should know. He took a deep breath. You also saved me. Jalen smiled weakly. Then we're even. On the screen, the last traces of Randall's code were being erased. But in that room, one truth had crystallized. The threat was no longer external. Even in victory, they knew trust had been shattered, and something still lurked behind the network's curtain. Jalen, exhausted, was taken back to the hospital, but before leaving, he pinned a note to the terminal. When everything seems stable, that's when you should look closer. The enemy always acts in silence. 3 days after the attack, the main auditorium at Hartman Technologies was filled to capacity. Journalists, employees, government officials, and cybersecurity experts from around the world gathered before a stage adorned with a single banner. Security is more than code. It's humanity. At the center, Lucas Hartman, his expression softer than ever before, stepped up to the podium wearing a simple shirt, no tie. He looked visibly moved. The lights dimmed. Behind him, a screen displayed a timeline. The attempted breach, the early signals, the coordinated attacks, and finally, the intervention of a 13-year-old boy who had saved not only Hartman's servers, but the integrity of a billion-dollar company. Lucas looked out at the audience in silence for several seconds. Then he spoke, his voice steady but laced with emotion. I built this company with the purpose of protecting people, but ironically, I was the one who failed to protect them from what was closest to me. I ignored a warning, not from lack of information, but from arrogance, because it came from somewhere I didn't want to look. A boy, homeless, invisible. His name is Jalen Brooks. On screen, an image appeared. The boy in a cap, holding his notebook. A murmur passed through the room. Jalen not only saw what no one else saw, he understood what even our best engineers couldn't decode. And despite it all, despite being dismissed, mistreated, disbelieved, He chose to save us, not for money, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. The auditorium fell into a touched silence, which is why today, with full support from the Hartman Technologies Board, we are proud to announce the creation of the Jalen Brooks Lifetime Scholarship, which will guarantee Jalen a full education, from high school through PhD, anywhere in the world he wishes to study. Applause thundered across the room. But that's not all. Today, with pride and humility, I announce that Jalen will be welcomed, should he wish, as part of my family. Lucas paused, his voice cracking. Not as a symbol, but as someone who taught me what it means to start over. Cameras turned to the side of the stage where Jalen entered, wearing a light blue shirt, his hair combed, his gaze still shy but unshakably strong. The applause was unanimous and prolonged. People stood. Some cried. He walked slowly to the center of the stage where Lucas waited with open arms. The hug was restrained, almost quiet, but heavy with meaning. When the microphone was offered to Jalen, he hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. I didn't expect any of this. I never thought anyone would ever listen to what I had to say. He paused, and I'm glad you did. But there's something I need to say, something that still needs fixing. The room's attention tightened. I wasn't alone on the streets, I never was. I have a brother. His name is Malik. He's 7. The last time I saw him, he had a fever and was hiding in an abandoned train car on the Red Line. Whispers echoed around the room. I left to find food. When I came back, he was gone. I searched for days. Then I ended up near the Hartman building, and the rest, you know. Silence fell like a stone. I'm grateful for the scholarship, the home, the opportunity, but I can't accept it while he's still out there. Lucas stepped forward, visibly stunned. Jalen, you're not alone anymore. We'll search together. You don't have to disappear again. Jalen looked into his eyes, wearing the same expression he had when scanning code, hunting flaws. Focused, alert, determined. Sometimes, we have to disappear to find what matters most. And with that, he walked off stage. In the days that followed, the story went viral. Headlines splashed across screens and papers. Boy who saved billion-dollar company now seeks lost brother. Homeless hero refuses adoption until family is reunited. Lucas mobilized an entire team to search for Malik. Social agencies were contacted, hospitals, police stations. But the days passed, and nothing. Until 1 week later, something unexpected happened. During an inspection of an abandoned subway terminal in Queens, a guard found a note taped to the wall, written in blue ink. Thanks for looking, but I'm still better at it. Keep taking care of what you built. I'll be back. J. The signature was unmistakable. Next to it, drawn in the corner of the paper, a squirrel, the emblem of Jalen's defense algorithm. Lucas held the note for a long time like it was a fragment of the boy himself. He smiled, sadly. The following week, he announced the creation of the Jalen Brooks Institute, a foundation dedicated to teaching cybersecurity to youth from marginalized communities, providing structure, psychological support, and housing. The neon-lit motto at the entrance read, "Listen to what's ignored. That's where the future lives." On the first day of class, 200 young students were welcomed. Each received a notebook, black cover, blank pages, their name engraved on the inside back cover. Meanwhile, at a station upstate, a security camera captured a final image. Jalen, now dressed simply but cleanly, with a backpack on his shoulders, boarding a train alone. He paused before the door, looked back, smiled, not the smile of relief, not goodbye, the smile of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. In his right hand, he carried a new notebook, white, ready to be written.